Prosperity, I believe that America's best days can still be ahead, and I want to lead us forward. Join me now in the Reid Revolution.
Happy Wednesday morning. I'm John Reid. You're watching the Reid Revolution back in Richmond, Virginia today after a whirlwind visit to New York City. Gosh, yesterday, I wasn't imagining this. I think fewer people went into the city of New York on Monday and Tuesday because they're worried about some sort of retribution on our own streets about what is happening on the other side of the planet. And I got to tell you, that's a problem. That's a problem. In this country, if you are worried about retribution, about something that's happening on the other side of the world in your own town, then you need to be concerned about that. The people of Iran are thrilled to get rid of the oppressive tyrants that have been dominating them for decades. The people who took women in that country and took them out of Western garb and said you have to wear black burqas and you have to stay covered from head to toe, and we can beat you with sticks, and you will have no formal role in the society unless we're sending you overseas to try to defend the society. The women of Iran are very glad that the bad guys are gone. And yet we seem confused about that, or at least a lot of people in this country seem very, very confused about who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. Listen, I really would be, I wouldn't admire Iran. I wouldn't want to go there. I wouldn't want to have anything to do with Iran. If it was just Iran, if they kind of kept to themselves and they're like, you know what, we're radical Islamist fundamentalists, we are not going to allow freedom in our country. That would bother me as somebody who thinks that people should be free just in general, but that's their country. Let them figure it out. The problem is, for the last 47 years, that's not what they've done. That's not what they've done. The radical Islamists took over their own country, and then they decided that that wasn't enough, and then they decided that they were going to kill us. They were going to kill Americans. They were going to kill Westerners. They were going to fund terror with oil money. They were going to export every bad, nasty, horrible, oppressive idea from their culture around the world and try to take over the world. Not a new thing. This crusade of radical Islam has been going on for a long, long time. So, you're willfully ignorant if you don't acknowledge that this is just the next chapter in a long book of conquest by radical Islamists. And at some point, it will get to a place where you can't be willfully ignorant anymore. I mean, we've been blessed to be in this country, and all that stuff just happens on the other side of the planet. So, the Americans sit there and stuff their fat faces with McDonald's and wait for the next episode of Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy while they see 30-second clips of what the rest of the world is dealing with. And we've been blessed that that's about the extent, unless you're in the military or you're actually have responsibilities as a government official, we've been blessed that that's the extent of what we have had to deal with. Well, the world is getting smaller and smaller because A, of airplanes, and B, stupid people all around the world who have opened the gates to different countries and imported people who hate the West and have allowed them to live amongst us. And that's a problem. So in New York City, if you're a native New Yorker and in the back of your mind, you're thinking, gosh, should I go into Midtown Manhattan today? Because somebody might stab me to death in Times Square, and not just one of the normal homeless vagrants, drug addict vagrants that Americans tend to allow to live amongst us for some stupid reason. Not just our homegrown variety of freaks who are violent that Democrats don't have the guts to put behind bars. Not that crowd, but the very sober crowd of people who want to cause problems, who hate you and hate this country and hate everything about the West, that's who we've got to be worried about now. That's not my fault. That's not, yeah, I won't say it's not the Republicans' fault because, as much as I love George W. Bush and I appreciate what he did do as president, he is a part of the problem. Some of these people on my side didn't pull focus fast enough. And, it's very easy, I think, especially if you've been in an elite family and you've kind of always been welcome to the cocktail party at the United Nations, and you've moved in those circles, intellectual circles, it's very easy to convince yourself that the nice person you met at the cocktail party, or at least the engaged intellectual person that you met at the cocktail party, is representative of the masses. And I hate to tell you that's not true. The masses want to cut your throat, and the people who are devout religious adherents, they despise you, and you're really not going to fix that. Um, and we need to be sober and mature enough to recognize that as a people and adjust to that reality, not to the fantasy world, the nice world that we want to live in, but to the reality. And that's what Donald Trump did here. And I think Donald Trump waited too late. You want to know my opinion? Uh, this has been a lingering problem. These guys have been agitating to harm us for a long time. It was clear that even with the strike last year, that Iran was going back and trying to rapidly rebuild their nuclear capabilities. I don't know how easy that would be, but I mean, it's not like they don't have money, courtesy of Barack Obama and friends. I mean, that was probably one of the biggest strategic mistakes in modern history for the United States, is the decision by Barack Obama to send money to Iran. With the hope that they're going to be our friends? They're not going to be our friends. I mean, we just need to recognize that there is a fundamental disconnect here, and it's based on religion. And I'm so sorry. I wish that wasn't the case, but that's the case. It's based on religion. And for all of you who hate evangelical Christians, just imagine your hatred towards evangelical Christians times 1 million. That's the hatred that they feel towards everybody in the West. And you need to be sober enough and mature enough to recognize that there are people in this country who don't like the attitude of evangelical Christians. I think that's a big overreach on their part, but there are people who feel that way. That's nothing compared to being raised in a society that tells you you are the preeminent inheritance of planet Earth, and that you have a right to murder anyone who doesn't adhere to your religious beliefs. Imagine growing up from year 1 to year 50, being told that on a regular basis, and watching your country go out of their way to murder people who don't adhere to your religious beliefs. That's what we're up against. So snap out of it, everybody. Stop believing the niceties. I have a wonderful friend who's an Episcopal priest who I think is very frustrated with me. And I've said, look, you're fulfilling one goal here. You're kind of a intermediary between the worlds, between this Christian conservative world and the Islamic world. You're serving a role here, but I can't take your advice on this because I know that you have not pulled focus to recognize the threat. You're dealing with people who want to deal with you. You're dealing with people who, for whatever reason, maybe it is noble, maybe it is good, they want to interact with Christians. That's terrific. That's terrific. So once we get rid of the bad guys who want to kill Christians, then maybe you and your friends will be able to step up and navigate a place where we can have some peace. But that's not where we are right now. And he's convinced, I think, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think he's convinced that we've advanced to a place where there will be some sort of peace. No, no. I mean, you just look around the world and you see that that's unfortunately not where we are. And as much as I would love to say, let's just ignore that and not be involved in it, and, that's on the other side of the planet, leave it alone. We don't have that luxury because they would gladly send bombs to New York City, where I was yesterday, um, to Los Angeles, to East Coast cities that are vulnerable, and slaughter Americans, and they wouldn't think twice about it. And there are, unfortunately, and it's kind of shocking to me with all the attention that we've paid to 9/11 in 2001. This is 2026. So you have people who were born when 9/11 happened, who are now voting, who are now a part of American society, who have been convinced that we're the problem in society. And when you talk to some of them, they'll tell you they think we deserved what happened on 9/11. Really? That we have not done, for all of our talk about not forgetting what happened on 9/11, we've really done a bad job here because there's a large percentage, and it's kind of shocking to me, of people who were in that age group who were children or just about to be born in 2001 who think we're the problem. And they think that this action by President Trump is an affirmation that we're the problem instead of an unfortunate reality that we've got to take action to protect ourselves. I mean, I would love to be one of the people who is America first, no conflicts around the world, except the conflicts are there. And if we ignore them, if we pull the curtains closed and act like we don't see the city on fire, the fire's moving closer and closer to us. The other buildings are burning, and it's getting closer and closer to us. And I feel like I'm at a place in my life, having traveled around the world and having been involved in international affairs, that I need to be one of the voices that's saying, as much as I would like to ignore this, this is a necessity, an awful necessity, a terrible thing to see, but it's important. But there are a lot of people who don't get it, or they really do despise us. They're leaders here and they despise us. Take for example this quote that we got from Kamala Harris, who, thank God she's not president right now. I mean, this weakness that's on display from her is why it is a blessing that she is no longer in the federal government. She says Donald Trump is dragging the United States into a war the American people do not want. Well, maybe. And I don't know whether the American people want it or not. I would love for it not to be happening, but okay. Let me be clear. I'm opposed to a regime change war in Iran, and our troops are being put in harm's way for the sake of Trump's war of choice. Well, you're a fool, lady. You're really an ignorant fool. This isn't Trump's war of choice. We're not trying to distract from all the Democrats in the Epstein files and Bill Clinton's um, dalliances with Epstein. I mean, honestly, if that was the point, I would say just let this go on. You've got Hillary Clinton testifying, you've got Bill Clinton testifying, you've got all these pictures of Bill Clinton lounging in a pool with random women who aren't his wife. I mean, you think that hurts Trump? I don't think that hurts Trump. I think it exposes Epstein for being a friend of a lot of Democrat leaders like Bill Clinton. So that's not what's happening here. It's legitimate always to ask yourself whether it's a wag the dog kind of situation. I think that is a legitimate question. Whenever something pops up, you should say, now, wait a minute, is this a distraction? That's a legitimate thing to be concerned about because we've witnessed that. And I think both parties, both sets of leaders do that. Oh, look over here so that you will ignore what's going on. That's not what's happening in this case. Because the Epstein thing ain't looking good for Democrats, if we're being honest. I think let that story roll out if you're a partisan. This is happening because we're threatened by people who want to kill us, and they still will not back down. I wouldn't have ever expected them to back down. Trump bombs them last year. tries to destroy their nuclear capabilities, I don't know how many more times everyone needs to see these people aren't going to stop. We've negotiated with them, we've set up deals with them. They lie. They lie. This is a part of the culture. Lie to you to get what you want. Americans don't understand it. I unfortunately understand it having lived in the Middle East. This is what you can expect from people in the Middle East. Even our friends. I wouldn't trust a damn thing anybody says. I would be double and triple checking because it's a culture of lying. It's hard for us to comprehend that because, at least for the moment, that's not what we're used to, but that's what we're dealing with. Look at this from Elizabeth Warren. I mean, here's another delusional person, academic dummy who has no clue what's happening around the rest of the world, but she's very, very stern, and we're supposed to take her seriously. Elizabeth Warren, the senator.
Donald Trump is taking the United States into war on his own with no authorization from Congress. He is willing to sacrifice American lives for what? For regime change? For a war that the president's own top military advisor has warned will be incredibly dangerous? For a war built on lies? For a war that won't make us safer? I want to be clear. The United States had a deal that could have prevented Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. That was Obama's nuclear deal with Iran, and Trump blew that deal up and got nothing in return. And now he's starting another war in the Middle East instead of doing the hard work of diplomacy to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. It is reckless and it is dangerous. It is a betrayal of the president's duty to uphold the Constitution and a betrayal of the American people.
Yeah, look, I wouldn't want this woman in charge of an elementary school. She's so uh, certain of herself and yet such a dummy. And she really doesn't have a clue about what's happening around the world. That deal that Obama struck was not in our best interest. It was predicated on lies. You're a fool, lady. And I mean that with all due respect, Senator. You are a total fool if you think that the Obama deal benefited the United States. You cut a deal with liars who are running out the clock so that they can murder you. And this is why you can't have a woman like that in charge, because she's too stupid to understand what's actually happening. She's blinded. And I mean, she is not an asset in a war setting. I don't know where you could put her, at what time she could emerge, where she could be helpful. I guess she does care about, the average person being taken advantage of by banks and financial institutions. Okay, but she does not have the instinct to deal with these types of conflicts. Unfortunately, that's not a woman thing. I mean, I would welcome if we could find a Margaret Thatcher right now, who was sophisticated enough to know when people have ulterior motives and are trying to murder you. Where is Margaret Thatcher in this whole thing? So please don't misunderstand. I'm not criticizing her because she's a female. I'm criticizing her because she's an idiot and doesn't get it. And a lot of people see women who express themselves in a very stern way and think that that's seriousness. No, she's covering up her own ignorance. Real quick, here's John Fetterman. And you know what? I guess I was wrong about John Fetterman. I mean, he's a Democrat, so expect to have your heart broken because there's a reason he's a Democrat. But he's the only guy who seems to be somewhat sane in the Democrat caucus. This was one of the most evil people that ever lived, talking about the Ayatollah. And after 37 years in Iran, that was his time as supreme leader. He's been eliminated. I can't imagine why Democrats, Republicans, everyone can't celebrate that, because tens of millions of people in Iran are absolutely celebrating. Something's weird about John Fetterman. I mean, the fact that he had that nervous breakdown when he first got to the Senate. I mean, I'll be honest with you. It's a nation of 335 million people. So if you're, with all due respect, if you're having a personal problem that's causing you to have a nervous breakdown, you probably shouldn't be one of the 100 people in the United States Senate making decisions, whether I agree with you or not. Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. That's just a problem. And the fact that a grown adult male doesn't seem to be able to consistently wear a suit to work, that I mean, I don't know what to say. That's such an obvious mental issue. Yeah, I mean, it's one thing if you don't want to wear a tie. I feel guilty not wearing a tie to church while everybody else is in sweatpants and flip flops. I mean, that's the way I was raised. Um, but the United States Senate, arguably the most august legislative body in at least the Western world, maybe with the exception of Parliament, although they're going to hell. I mean, I don't know. There's something wrong with the guy, but he has of late demonstrated better instincts than most of his colleagues. How crazy is that? I never thought I would say it. Never thought I would say it, but I have to concede my initial reaction to where he would fall on these types of issues was wrong. I was mistaken. So, okay, I can admit it. When I make a mistake, unlike most political people, I can actually acknowledge it. But I'd still, I don't think you can count on the guy based on the totality of his time, at least in the Senate. I don't know what he was like as lieutenant governor in Pennsylvania, but interesting, interesting to see. Here's the bottom line for this topic for me. This is why what you're seeing right now is why it is so important to pick the right person to be your president, to pick the right person to be your governor. This is not a high school popularity contest. This is not the middle school student body president promising to put better pizza in the cafeteria. This is not who's going to be your choice as news anchor, who's better looking and who has a better voice and who's going to read the script better on one of the evening newscasts. You truly are picking someone who is going to make life and death decisions about our military men and women, minimally, about millions of people overseas, and potentially about your life here domestically in the United States. That's important. I don't think we have treated it as if it's important. And for all the bombast and the kind of odd behavior that you sometimes get from President Trump, I think he is grounded. I think he understands how important these decisions are. That's why in his first term we didn't have a war. We had strategic strikes, and I think ultimately this is going to be one of those, a strategic strike that is extended over what, a month? Let's see. This is the beginning of March. Today's the 4th of March. Let's see on April 4th where we are. Can we agree to do that? Let's see where we are in 1 month and what the situation is. And I don't think there's any guarantee that this is going to work out great for the people of Iran. I don't know where the majority of the people of Iran are, and quite frankly, whether the military and the people who have guns will still be the radical Islamists who will slaughter anybody who stands up against them. So I don't think there's any way that you can guarantee that this is going to work out in everybody's best interest. But what I do think you can guarantee is that the number one advocate for the slaughter of American citizens, of Christians, and of Jews, of Westerners around the world is now dead. And so are his deputies. And this is not a video game. This is not a movie. This is real life. And I think we've taken the right steps and made a good decision here based on that threat alone. And you need to have smart, strong people who are not scared who will make these types of decisions. And that's what you've gotten from Donald Trump. But I would brace myself for trouble ahead, overseas and domestically. And it should make you question every immigration decision that's been made in the last 20 years if you've got to look over your shoulder when you're in the United States about whether you're about to be stabbed or whether someone's about to set off a backpack with bombs in it and kill you. I pray to God that doesn't happen. But come on, be honest. That's been in the back of your mind, right? Right? Maybe if you've been on a bus, you've been downtown, you've been in D.C., you've been in Washington, you've been in New York, like I was. Come on, admit it. You're kind of wondering whether that could happen, and that's a problem. And we did it to ourselves because we haven't been tough enough to make difficult decisions about who is going to live in our society. And I don't know what we do now. I can tell you, I don't think any of the solutions are good solutions, including just letting people stay and pray to God pray to Allah, pray to God that they don't kill us. I mean, I think we got a problem on our hands. Who's going to be the next leader who's tough enough to objectively and honestly deal with that? Should be thinking about it because that's probably one of the issues that we're going to have to deal with coming up. As we continue on this Wednesday morning, I want to talk about really bad leadership, talking about picking who the governor is. Governor Spanberger refuses to work with immigration officials, even when the story comes out that this 41-year-old mother from Fredericksburg was stabbed to death a week ago in Fairfax by an illegal who has been caught and charged 30 times with violent crimes. What the hell is going on in Northern Virginia where they don't have the guts to lock somebody up while they await trial? I mean, this guy, Abdul Jallah, 30 plus arrests, currently charged with the murder of this 41-year-old woman. And the Democrat reaction is, oh, we're still not going to work with the Department of Homeland Security and Immigration? Come on. Are you serious? That's your reaction, Governor Spanberger? This is the law enforcement woman who's supposedly looking out for us? We've made a mistake here. We have the wrong person in charge. And this is just another example of instinct, bad instinct, which leads to bad policy. And I don't know, how can you hear of this woman, totally innocent? She's not a protester. She's not out there doing anything except going about her life, who's murdered. And your reaction to that is you're still not going to work with the federal government to deport illegals? Give me a break. Come on. Come on. This is crazy. This is crazy. Virginia made a big mistake last year, and we're going to really pay for it. We're going to pay for it with our money, with these high taxes. And then more importantly, some of us are going to pay with our lives because of bad policies like this. If you're a politician or you're a leader, maybe more importantly, if you're a leader, you're able to see the reality and make changes. And Governor Spanberger can't do that. By the way, anybody heard from Ghazala Hashmi? Has anybody bothered to ask the first Muslim woman statewide elected official what she thinks about it? Are we just going to let her have a pass on this? She gets to trumpet being a Muslim, and everybody's so excited about that. But then when we're in a conflict like this, nobody says, now, wait a minute, are you on the side of the United States or not? Nobody has the guts to ask her that. Just like during the campaign. Nobody, except me, has the guts to bring that legitimate, unpleasant, but legitimate question up. Wouldn't you like to know? Wouldn't you like to be sure that everybody who's in an elected office in Virginia is actually on the side of the United States and doesn't have, I'm not sure how I feel about this? Wouldn't you like to know that? I think you probably should. Anyway, nobody's going to do it. We'll talk more about that as we continue. Congressman Rob Whitman joins us in just a moment here on this Wednesday morning. Stay with us on the Reid Revolution. Back this morning on the Reid Revolution, I'm John Reid, and we are very glad to welcome my congressman, Rob Whitman, to the program today to talk about some of the issues that are bubbling in Washington and around the world. Congressman, I appreciate you coming on. You're vice chair of the Armed Services Committee. A lot of people don't recognize that, we've got a very powerful congressperson who deals with the military, and there are a lot of military men and women and posts and bases in Virginia that you're looking out for on a regular basis. Can I get you to tell me what your take is, where we are with the engagement with Iran at the moment? And good morning to you.
Sure. Well, John, good morning. Great to be with you. Yes, Operation Epic Fury is incredibly impactful in that region. I'm so proud of our men and women in uniform who are doing an exceptional job there in achieving their missions, and really they're ahead of what the objectives are with these missions there, and taking away Iran's capability to harm others, not just in the region but around the world. And we're certainly, very mindful today of the 6 military members that gave their lives for this nation. We're blessed beyond compare of people that are willing to sacrifice everything in order to stand up for what we all believe in, and as the foundational principles of this nation. So I want to make sure that everybody, takes time to remember and honor those that gave their lives, and to keep in your thoughts and prayers their families who obviously are suffering through the loss of loved ones. Let's make sure that we understand, what the cost of this is, but also understand too that for 47 years, the Islamic regime there has perpetrated acts of terror, has killed Americans all throughout the world, as well as others there in the Middle East. So they are indeed, through the years, an existential threat to the United States. That existential threat, as we know, in recent decades has continued to build with their ability to field nuclear weapons. With Operation Midnight Thunder, we were able to take out a significant part of their ability to refine uranium to turn it into a nuclear weapon. But what we saw them doing very recently was rebuilding that capability quickly, and then building a large enough stockpile of conventional weapons, John, to keep anybody from coming back in and doing what we did with Operation Midnight Thunder. So if you put enough drones, enough missiles around there to keep any airplanes from flying in and using the weapons that we had to take out these deep in the ground bunkers where they were refining this uranium, they were fully intending to reconstitute their nuclear capability and make it almost impossible for any effort to take it out again. So that was one of the precipitators for the United States to act in conjunction with Israel to take out that capability. So as you've heard, the military mission for the United States is to take out the missiles, to take out the facilities that build those missiles, take out the nuclear facilities, take out Iran's ability to perpetrate harm and destruction on anybody outside of Iran. In other words, you can have your ability to defend yourself, but extending that reign of terror that they've done through the years through building military capability is something that was only going to lend itself to threats and further harm around the world. Iran was fully intending to build an intercontinental ballistic missile that could reach the United States. So those things are a threat to the United States. The president said we're going to act because he knew that the longer you waited, the deeper this threat got, and then the more difficult it would be to be able to take out this threat.
Why do you think Democrats on the Hill have responded negatively to this? It's very clear that Iran is not benign in their attitude towards the West and to the United States. And there are recent things that we can point to that they've been behind that are harmful to the American government and to innocent American citizens. And yet there hasn't been the unity from the Democrat Party to support President Trump, even if they don't like him personally. I would think this would be one of the few things that everybody could agree on, and that hadn't happened.
It hasn't, and it should. You go back in history, look at it. They didn't object when President Clinton went into Bosnia. They didn't object to President Obama when he did some things there in the Middle East. So you look at this, and you do have to ask the question, is this just about politics, or is this about advocating for what's best for the United States, and then also, acknowledging the great effort that's being put into this by the men and women in the military. Listen, they're not there for political purposes. They're there to defend the United States, and if nothing else, everybody ought to be commending the job that they're doing, and then acknowledging the deep sacrifices that those six made for this nation, giving of their lives, and then the families there. So, there ought to be the ability to do that. I think that it's regretful that there tends to be sometimes a myopathy. And listen, it occurs in many different ways. But I want to make sure that we understand what this is all about. And we've had some great briefings from the administration laying things out. And listen, you can disagree with the tactics. You can disagree with, what we should or shouldn't be doing there. But I think overall, there's no way that you can look at it and go, oh, yeah, as you said, Iran is benign. They're not a threat. We shouldn't be doing anything to be able to minimize what the Islamic Republic there is doing to other areas of the world. That Iranian Islamic Republic there, run by extremist clerics, is indeed a perpetrator of violence, of terrorism around the world. And they've done that consistently. They've killed Americans. They've kidnapped Americans. There's no way that you can look at Iran and go, oh, yeah, it's okay for them to continue to grow an ability to threaten not just their neighbors in the Middle East, John, but to threaten the United States.
Yeah. Well, I hope sober, objective minds will take over their party as they look at this. If you don't mind, let me bring you back domestically and
Sure.
talk a little bit about the gerrymandering referendum, which appears likely to begin on Friday of this week and run all the way through April 21st. And your survival as a congressperson, as a Republican congressperson in Virginia, is probably on the ballot here as Democrats push through what I think, again, an objective observer of the law and the rules that the Democrats put in place that they're now not following would vote no. What is your assessment of where we are as we head towards what looks like the start of this illegal action?
Well, listen, I believe that it will start. Obviously, there are a number of court cases out there, some very favorable rulings for us in the lower courts, but ultimately the Supreme Court will have to act. To this point, they've said no, they're going to wait until after the referendum, which
Does that surprise you?
Yeah, it does. It just doesn't make sense to me. The constitutionality of this, I think, is now. If you wait until after, there are a whole variety of reasons you can assert to the court as to why they would choose to do that. I think that the efforts by the Democrats in doing this clearly have circumvented the Constitution, have clearly circumvented the statutes for the Commonwealth of Virginia. They've gone through a number of political machinations there, and they are political machinations within the General Assembly to try to cobble together some justification to be able to do this and to provide some support to their, what I think, a false assumption about this being constitutional or it being statutorily compliant. I think that the court hopefully would rule on that. Now we'll see. They still have a little bit of a window to be able to do that. The bottom line, though, is we have to be ready in this referendum to be able to win this. And you've seen the polling. The polling clearly states that Virginians don't want this. Going all the way back to 2020, when a supermajority of Virginians said, no, we want the bipartisan redistricting commission. And by the way, Senator Louise Lucas, Governor Spanberger, all have said vehemently that they are in favor of bipartisan redistricting and against gerrymandering. In fact, it was Governor Spanberger that said gerrymandering is a threat to democracy. I would agree with her fully. And now all of a sudden she's all in favor of it. And the same with Senator Lucas and others. It's interesting how they've completely changed their focus on this. And then, too, they justify by saying, oh, we have to do it because Texas has done it and North Carolina has done it. And they've been very vocal to say how much they object to gerrymandering, how bad gerrymandering is. And then their response is, well, we hate gerrymandering and gerrymandering's wrong. So our response to it is to actually gerrymander ourselves here in Virginia. Mm-hmm. I don't think Virginians will have any part of it, but they're very deceptive, John, too, in how they've worded this referendum. The wording of the referendum, I believe, is also not in compliance with the state law. The state law says you have to, in a nonpartisan way, state what the referendum is about. And they say, oh, this is just temporary. I don't know anybody that believes that a change to the Constitution is temporary. Second of all, as they say, oh, it's about restoring fairness. Well, fairness was already there with what the Bipartisan Redistricting Commission had done. This actually eliminates fairness by going in and saying, now we're going to let politicians pick their voters. We're going to gerrymander these districts. Anybody that looks at the map just is beside themselves. And now you have 5 districts that have a Northern Virginia majority there in those districts. So that'll be 5 members from Northern Virginia, and those areas extend all the way down to Richmond in the rural areas of Virginia. So those areas are going to be very underrepresented, because if you believe that a member that gets elected in a district where the majority of their voters are in Northern Virginia are going to give any credence to anybody outside of that area, you have another thing coming. And then looking at those maps, I mean, they are as gerrymandered as you can be. They're not maintaining communities of interest. They're not compact. I mean, all the things that they're supposed to be. So I've actually filed a suit in the Richmond court to say, listen, they're misrepresenting this in the wording in the referendum. We think that that's problematic, and I want to make sure that people understand that. We have the case filed. We're still waiting for some other things to happen in order to serve the case.
Is there language that requires objectivity in the way a question is presented to the general public? Because clearly the Democrats have rigged this to the language, at least, to say this is all about restoring fairness. And that I don't see how they can think that that's true objectively, but it's certainly not a balanced presentation of why you would vote one way or the other.
John, there is a requirement that directs how the language for these referendums are to be written, and that is for it to be nonpartisan and not to be leading. In the court of law, you always, will get objected to by a defense attorney or a prosecuting attorney if you're trying to lead a witness,
right? Because
you're trying to get them to an answer and make it misleading in how you're asking the question. That's exactly what's happening here. This is misleading. This is not about restoring fairness. Anybody that looks at these maps can no way, shape, or form say, oh, yeah, this is fair. And it's not fair to go from a 6-5 congressional delegation, 6 Democrats, 5 Republicans, to a 10-1 delegation. I would argue 6-5, pretty representative of the state where it is right now. The last 2 statewide elections, 57% and 54% of votes gained by the Democrats. If you look at 10-1, that's 92%. 92% now Democrat. Virginia is not a 92% Democrat state. So to do this and then justify it, by these specious reasons is just beyond me. And Virginians have said, no, we don't want this. If you look at the polling, Virginians have said, no, we think that this is wrong. And there's still almost a supermajority out there that said, we still like the Bipartisan Redistricting Commission. Our challenge is to make sure we get the word out, because the advertising that's going on by the Democrats is very misleading. Obviously, they're throwing a lot of resources at that because they believe if they can pick up 4 seats, which is what they intend to do with this, that, spending $10 million, $20 million to do that, it's a pretty good return on investment. So we've had some very good discussions with the National Republican Congressional Committee, with the Republican National Committee, with the White House to get them to put some money in. We've also been talking, there's an independent entity out there that's raising money. It's called Virginians for Fair Maps. And anybody that's interested in going there, you can go to their website. It's vafairmaps.com, vafairmaps.com. And for anybody that wants to help, we have all of our committees out there that are on the ground. They are spun up about this. The good news too, John, in the poll, if you look, and the enthusiasm is on our side. I think people are really beside themselves in what's happening with the General Assembly in Richmond, the overreach that's happening there. I think they look at this and go, wow, this is just going to exacerbate it and put Virginia in the wilderness and put it at the hands of extremists, for a long time to come if we don't prevail in this referendum. So this is, as I said, an all hands on deck call for the Commonwealth and for folks out there to say, with everything you've got, get your friends and family out to vote, because, this will be about the long-term viability of having a different point of view than the Democrats. I mean, if you're an independent or you're a Republican, and even for that matter, a number of Democrats, John, say, no, we disagree with this. This is not the way to go about this. So I think people want that bipartisan effort in government. They're tired of the divisions there. They want those efforts to not be blatantly partisan or to have a partisan power grab like they're seeing going on now with this referendum.
You were a part of the Virginia General Assembly for
Yes.
For a period of time. Were you in there when Republicans were in the majority?
Yes. Yeah. I was there with your father, and we were there with Speaker Bill Howell, and yes, we were there.
So wasn't there a push at one point with a really kind of aggressive group of Republicans to do this, and Republican leadership said no? Am I remembering that correctly?
There were times when the maps were to be redrawn that there were some partisan efforts on the Republicans' part on the redistricting side. But again, the effort was to say, well, let's get away from that. And I agreed with that. It shouldn't be a partisan process, regardless of who did it. And it was both sides. It was, you go back to Speaker Tom Moss and look at what happened to I think it was the 5th congressional district, who happened to be represented by, at the time, Congressman George Allen. And guess what happened with the Democrats? They redistricted George Allen out of his district. George said, "Okay, that's fine. I'm going to run for governor."
That's how that started.
And as you know, the rest is history. So it's been done.
They've regretted
by both
that ever
sides.
since, probably.
That's right. That's right. So it's been done historically, but Virginians in 2020 by supermajority, 66% said, no, we don't want this. Prior to recently, Democrats across the spectrum agreed with that. Governor Spanberger ran her campaign and said, no, I don't think we ought to do this. I think it's wrong to do this gerrymandering. Before that, when the gerrymandering referendum was suggested, she said no. And then even prior to that, position was that gerrymandering is just not good for Virginia. And I would agree with her.
But I don't know how you can say
that. Yeah, I don't know how you can say that, a year plus ago, and then all of a sudden today it's good. If you believe it's good today, then tell us what conditions have changed to justify that, other than somebody else has done it. John, when we grew up, our parents always used to tell us, just because somebody else does something wrong doesn't mean that justifies you doing something wrong. And this is not good for Virginia. It is wrong from the standpoint of making sure that you're fair to the voters. Remember, these are politicians picking their voters, which is what voters absolutely hate. And yet we have the governor, the majority leader in the Senate, the Speaker of the House all saying, oh, no, we've got to do this. And this is good for Virginia. This is restoring fairness. And it's completely the opposite. Wrong for Virginia, doesn't restore fairness. And this is exactly what the people of Virginia said they didn't want. 66% of the people said, no, we don't want this. What is so quizzical about that for Democrats? It ought to be a clear message. They ought to go, oh gosh, I wonder what the electorate means when they did that. No, it's pretty overwhelming. They don't want gerrymandering.
Right. Abigail Spanberger and the Democrats really have done a 180 on a lot of the positions that they held. And one of the things that worries me is their lack of cooperation with federal officials when it comes to immigration. I mean, we can argue over what's happening in Minneapolis. I would claim that the radical protesters are causing the problems and they're bringing that on themselves. But putting Minneapolis aside, I would think that Virginia voters would expect our government to cooperate with federal officials, especially when it comes to murderers and rapists. Have you seen this story in Fairfax where this young woman was murdered at the bus stop?
Yes.
And the governor doesn't seem to think it's a priority to cooperate with federal officials to get that person out of the country.
Yeah, listen, this 41-year-old mother in Fredericksburg, brutally murdered by somebody here in the country illegally. And think about this, John. Governor Spanberger ran as a former law enforcement official, and she ran saying that her number one job was to protect Virginia families. And then the first thing she did when she got into office is to say, no, by the way, I'm not going to do that. We are not going to allow local and state law enforcement agencies to cooperate with federal agencies. And we know when they cooperate, we can avoid situations like we just saw with this brutal murder there of a Fredericksburg mother. I mean, that's just, it's an abdication of her constitutional responsibility, her primary responsibility of protecting Virginians. And she abdicated that, and unfortunately now is, allowing the Commonwealth not to do the things necessary to protect its citizens. It's shameful, but again, it's another 180% reversal over that which she ran on. And I think Virginians are watching this. I can tell you, I've talked to a number of people. In fact, a lot of folks right there in Henrico County, folks I went to school with, that said, Rob, we voted for the governor, and we can't believe what's happening in the General Assembly. We can't believe what the governor's doing. That's not what she said she was going to do. It's not what we thought she was going to do. They're just beside themselves with that. And I know that folks around the Commonwealth feel the same as the people that I've talked to across the first district, and that is they are in disbelief over the overreach by the Democrats, not just the governor, but also in the General Assembly.
Yeah, that story is pretty dramatic because it's so black and white for most people. You've got a dead innocent citizen who's a mom that everybody can identify with, and a political machine that's saying, let's not avenge or at least treat her memory fairly. I think people are really offended by that attitude. Then you couple that with the 51 proposed tax increases from a bunch of people who spent an entire year talking about affordability. I mean, your definition of affordable is very different than mine if you're trying to raise taxes on me and everybody who supplies services to me. That's crazy.
It's unbelievable, John. And think about it, on top of that, on top of the 51 bills to increase taxes, they have the audacity to lecture about affordability and how we have to do all those things. And yet they turn around and give themselves a massive pay increase.
You're right. That.
Yeah. The Virginia Senate voted themselves a massive pay increase. So they look at it and go, shame on you, working families out there. We're going to give ourselves a massive, what a contradiction in what they say they stand for with affordability, not only increasing cost on families through increased taxes and increased regulation, especially on small businesses. Look at the impact that this will have on small businesses. I've talked to a number of folks across the district, and they're just beside themselves and said, Rob, in addition to taking more out of our pocket to pay to the Commonwealth of Virginia Department of Taxation, this also cost us more to do business in these additional regulations. And then on top of that, they're saying, we're going to take more of your hard-earned money. And on top of that, we're going to take some of that money and we're going to give ourselves a massive pay increase because we're the advocates for affordability. This is, you would think that you'd woken up from an alternative universe dream if someone were to say, hey, we ran on affordability and these are the things we're doing to justify, our efforts there in the General Assembly on advocating for affordability. It's just mind-boggling that they're doing this.
If voters were frustrated last year, I can only imagine what the pulse is like right now, and I hope they'll make their voices heard when voting starts on this gerrymandering plan. Rob Whitman, the congressman from the 1st Congressional District, as it stands today, the Republican, I appreciate it very much. I'm always glad to see you.
John, thank you so much. Great to be on with you. All my best to you and your family and to all of your viewers there on your podcast. To wish you great success and God's continued blessings.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, we're back with more in just a moment on the Reid Revolution. Hope you'll stay with us. Oops, back on this Wednesday morning, and I'm always thankful to have Congressman Rob Whitman on with us. And our next guest is somebody that I've had the pleasure of being on his program on One America News. It's Riley Lewis. You've seen the real story with Riley Lewis a number of times, I'm certain. And I've got to thank you, Riley, for being one of the voices trying to hold the senators, including Republican senators, accountable for not moving on the SAVE Act. What is the latest in Washington? Are we going to get this thing through or not? And good morning. I'm thinking maybe your mic is blocked for a second, Riley. I don't know. Is it? Yeah. Well, doggone it. I do not hear you. Let's see. Producer Dan will work his magic. You know, the SAVE Act, for those of you who haven't been tracking it, I mean, it's not like there's nothing else going on. There's a lot happening out there that is very distracting. This is the bill, and it's the first, I don't think it's expansive enough, but this is the bill that requires individuals to prove that they're citizens when they register to vote and then show an ID that documents that when they go to vote, so that we have actual citizens voting one time in one place in each election, people who are entitled to vote in the society. And I've had a lot of Democrats in Virginia when I was campaigning and, you know, just in the last couple of months as the SAVE Act has become an issue, who have said, oh, this isn't a problem. Why are you making such a big deal out of this? Well, try being a candidate. I mean, you know, you put your life on hold, you spend exorbitant amounts of money from donors and, quite frankly, your own money to try to be a viable candidate. You want to be certain whether you win or you lose. It's certainly better to win than to lose, but regardless of what side of the stick you're on, you want to make sure that the votes are legitimate votes and that that the elections have been handled correctly. And look at what the Democrats are doing right now, and the courts are refusing to step in. It's very clear to me that Democrats do not obey the law when it comes time for elections. They are going to break the law. The referendum that starts on Friday about gerrymandering, the law is very clear that you've got to check these boxes about the timing on a calendar, which doesn't change. Here's the calendar. 90 days is 90 days. I don't know why this is a problem. You've got to let 90 days pass, hypothetically, so that the public is aware of what's happening and has a chance to discuss whatever proposal is going before them. And the Democrats have said, to hell with that. We're just not going to worry about it. We're not going to worry about it. They're the ones that created 45 days of voting, not Republicans. I don't think this is a good idea. 45 days of voting is outrageous to me. And again, that opens up the possibility of cheating. Don't take my word for it. Listen to Jimmy Carter, St. Jimmy of the Democrat Party. I mean, he's the one that said mail-in voting and extended voting periods were the problem. And yet no one really wants to take that seriously. So the SAVE Act begins to address at least the fundamentals, the basics of who's going to have the right to show up and vote. And Riley Lewis has been holding everybody accountable in the Senate for their inaction. And is something going to happen this week, Riley? What do you think?
Well, supposedly we're being told they will bring it to the floor for a debate, at least, not even a vote, which, look, I'm trying to be patient, but we worked so hard, John, to get to this place where we could even have a majority in both chambers of Congress. We got the trifecta in November of 2024. We got the White House. We got the Supreme Court. We got both chambers of Congress. And I am terribly afraid that we're squandering this, as Republicans tend to do, historically speaking. Now that we have a little bit of power, we're not using it. I know there's an issue about the filibuster. I think we should force a talking filibuster and make Democrats defend their suspicious opposition to the most sweeping election integrity bill this country has ever seen, because more than 70 countries around the world have voter ID laws in place. Ironically, Democrats have used their congressionally approved ID to vote against a voter ID bill, in spite of the fact that upwards of 70% of registered Democrat voters support it. So there's no excuse, there's no reason not to do it, unless, of course, you're banking on cheating and fraud in order to win elections. And if that is the case, John, they should own that publicly in front of the whole world and the American people. We deserve to know if they're banking on cheating to win.
Make them say it. But John Thune, who arrived in the United States Senate when I was working there as a communications director, I got to tell you, I'm so disappointed, and I really don't understand the conservative nature of what he's doing. The clock is running. Man, you had 24 months. That's it to get everything done. Let's be honest. History tells us that it is very unlikely that Republicans hold the majority in the House. Now there are those who question whether we'll hold the majority in the Senate. I don't know what's going to happen. All I know is you had 24 months to get a lot of important things done, and you had kind of a aggressive president who was likely to sign anything that you could push through. And
Yes.
for some reason, there's something holding them back in the Senate. I mean, I know they pride themselves on being a little more restrained than maybe their House colleagues, but what the hell are you waiting for, man? Right?
Very good question. I don't know if it's donors in their ear or if it's incompetency or complacency, but I also know this. House Republicans have done everything they can. This is the second draft of this critical bill. Last spring, a year ago, they passed
Hmm.
the SAVE Act. Very generous bill, bipartisan to some extent, super reasonable, right? This is the beacon of democracy on the world stage, so let's protect the sanctity of our elections. Deal. Sent it to the Senate. It just died off. Now we have the Save, then we have the Save or the Save Act Plus. Now we have the Save America Act, which goes even further. So House Republicans have used their majority. They understand the urgency of the mission. Everything rides on this, and it's bigger than just the midterms. Even if we lose the midterms, I can accept that if I know there's no cheating or fraud in our elections, because then it means the system's working as it should. Americans get to choose their own leaders. I think they should choose conservative ones because Democrats can't govern. But I can accept the result either way if I know that there is integrity in the system and it's working as designed. And right now, there's a giant question mark behind that. I don't know, and I don't understand the lack of urgency. But just last week, as a great example, and Senator Thune should explain this, they were having this dog parade on our dime. They called it
Yeah.
Doggy Gras. There was a video about it on X. It's all over
Oh
the
yeah.
internet. So we have elections, borders. We know what happens if we lose the midterms. I'm sure they already have articles of impeachment drafted, the Democrats. I'm sure they do. They will do that day one if they regain control of Congress. And I think a lot of Democrats in close races that will come down to 1,000 votes or less are banking on cheating to win. And even if they're not, there's no excuse for it. We have the majority, and why we don't use it, I don't understand. But this is a really eye-opening moment, and the American people trusted Republicans to govern. And if John Thune fumbles this moment, then it will confirm to a lot of people that a lot of establishment rhinos are just as feckless as Democrats, and there will be consequences for that. New candidates
Yeah.
will run. They will raise money. People will be primaried as they should. There will be consequences for this if they drop the ball.
Yeah. My fear is that they screwed it up the first time that we had this miracle with Donald Trump and the House and the Senate, and they got distracted by a bunch of lies about Russia and foul language from the president. I mean, I just don't care what language the president uses if we're solving the problems of the people. And I've been alive long enough to know that people speak behind the scenes with colorful language that you wouldn't use in public. And as long as there is that kind of dynamic where you recognize you present yourself in public with a certain decorum, and then you could be candid behind the scene, I'm fine with it. And it doesn't matter if a country collapses into cultural chaos and corruption, then none of it matters anyway. And now they're doing it again a second time, which is humiliating for people like me who have gone out and burned through money and lost friends and lost credit. I mean, it's a lot easier to be neutral, to just say, oh, the Republicans have some good ideas and the Democrats
Yes.
have some good ideas. It's a lot better for your career. It's a lot better for your money and your business. To take a stand requires something in modern America. And if people across the country are going to take that stand and then be shafted by the people that they tried to put in office, at some point, good guys just walk away and say to hell with all of it.
Yeah, agreed. And look, I don't want to. I'm not here to indict anybody personally. I'm frustrated as a voter. I spent so much time in my own personal energy, to your point, not just sitting on the fence. I see what this country's up against. I think the American people are no longer in the driver's seat. We've been losing control of our republic. And by the time we got to November of 2024, America didn't feel very American anymore. This country was on life support. We had just been invaded. Tens of millions of people from all over the world coming into our country, leeching off of our social welfare system. We saw at the State of the Union that so many people in DC care more about illegal immigrants than American citizens. I don't feel like a priority in my own country anymore. A country my ancestors lived in, a country my ancestors worked in. My ancestors have fought for this country on the front lines of multiple wars. I've had family in this country for over 100 years. I am an American. I bleed red, white, and blue. This is my home. And I am looking for a sense of urgency. I think we need to light a fire beneath John Thune, because I get a sense he doesn't understand what's at stake. It's not just elections, it is literally everything: the Constitution, the court system, immigration, mass deportations, mass amnesty on the other side. It is everything is at stake. This is not just a pivotal moment or another election cycle. This is a defining moment for the future of our republic. And with the 250th anniversary coming up, I can think of no better way to honor our ancestors and our founders than passing basic, bipartisan, common sense legislation to protect our elections, legislation supported by an overwhelming majority of American citizens across both parties, across demographic groups, and across generations. There is literally no excuse for it. I know we have a narrow majority in the Senate, but tough. Figure it out. You use it, and you have tools at your disposal. You might not want to use them. I get the whole, well, it sets a precedent and they'll do this to us. They tried to kill President Trump multiple times. They tried to put him in prison for hundreds of years. He was convicted for a non-existent crime in a kangaroo court of law in New York City by an openly biased judge and an openly biased district attorney who campaigned on getting Trump. We've seen what the radical left will do. They killed Charlie Kirk. These people are crazy and violent. Our country's future is at stake. No more excuses. We are at the end of the line. If there was ever a moment in American history to force a talking filibuster,
this is it.
This is the moment. This is it.
Yeah. I'm puzzled, honestly, Riley, by the members of the Congress, especially the senators who, being a senator is a great gig. There are only 100 of you, and everybody stops you in the hall and wants to know your opinion on everything from the dessert in the cafeteria and then they, oh, yes, you're right. You're the greatest. You're the smartest person ever. They're all lying to you to try to suck up to you and get money and votes off of you. But, I mean, it can be a very heady experience. But I don't know why they don't think, after what they just witnessed, the lies and the deceit and the manipulation of the bureaucracy of the federal government going after Donald Trump, the assassination of Charlie Kirk, the widespread violence across the country directed at conservatives, why they somehow think they're immune from really bad things happening to them in the future. I mean, if I was John Thune, I think if we don't get this under control and we head towards a civil war, which I'm really worried we're going to have, the people who think they're being so noble by being neutral in all of this are going to be the first ones, maybe the second ones, to be murdered in our own country. I watched protesters in New York with buttons with guillotines on them. That's not cute. That's not some little pithy political statement. That is a threat. We're going to kill you if we get our way. And I take that seriously, and I'm not about to sit here and allow that to happen. I don't understand why they don't feel the same anxiety, personal anxiety about that.
It's a good question. And I honestly don't know what is in the hearts or minds of these individuals. I know Mitch McConnell's opposed to it. He's made that clear. Again, why? I don't know
He's
why.
He's a traditionalist in a non-traditional world. And that doesn't serve you well. Yeah.
But it speaks to a problem with the priority of our country's leaders. I don't think that we are the priority because ultimately this election integrity bill is about one thing: making sure that we, you and I, John, decide our own future. That's the bottom line. We as Americans have the sole right to decide our future, to choose our leaders, whether they be Democrats or conservatives, whatever. I think they should be conservatives. But the point is, we as a populace reserve the right to control who comes into our country, immigration, super fundamental principle. And then we get the right to decide who chooses our leaders. Those are the two first principles. That's it. We get to pick who lives in our own home and who runs our home. That's it. It's super simple. No serious nation would even have this debate in the first place. More than 70 countries, many of them less serious than this one, supposedly, have already decided this. It's been settled, the conversation. So what I see, to your point, it is so basic and it's not a lot to ask for. It's super reasonable. It's exceedingly reasonable and super bipartisan, by the way.
Yeah.
Rarely do you see this kind of bipartisan consensus among voters in America. But here we are, more than 50% of both groups, Democrats and Republicans, overwhelmingly so. So let's get it done.
Right. I'm surprised that a California guy does such a good job of keeping up with what's happening on the Hill. Tell me what story we're not talking about or not covering that maybe is being obscured right now with this particular debate about the SAVE Act and the situation in Iran and assorted other issues that you think we should be talking about.
Well, interestingly, and it sort of ties to borders too, but with Iran, one issue that's come to light is the possibility of sleeper cells in America, domestic violence. We had millions of people enter our country undetected and unvetted. We don't know what's here. And just a few days ago, we saw a horrific shooting in Austin, Texas.
Right.
Shout out to the Austin Police Department for responding in less than 1 minute, by the way. That is incredible. Back the blue. But I think we should all be on high alert personally. Be very careful. Keep your head on a swivel. If there's people in your life that you love, just make it known that you love them and be very mindful of who you are spending your time with, because
it's weird that
we don't know who's in our country. Yes.
Yeah. I was in Manhattan yesterday and I started the program talking about how there were, when I'm by myself, I can't help but eavesdrop on other people's conversations at lunch and dinner. And people were talking about it. And then at one of the dinners I went to, one of the guests said, it seemed like fewer people came into Manhattan, into Midtown Manhattan, than normal on Monday, at least, probably out of fear that something bad might occur and they didn't want to happen to be in that place, whether it's Times Square or Fifth Avenue, when something bad occurred. But when this happens in Austin, see, that is an indication to me that we've got a group of people who are openly hostile to us. And we just have assumed that it wouldn't be a problem. And it's about to bite us all if we're not careful here.
Agreed. So just be careful. I'm trying to remember that every day. Well, this line of work, John, you get it. It's there's a risk. Charlie Kirk was killed and his whole thing was peaceful dialogue. That was the center of his life, just peaceful debate and discussion. And they killed him for it in front of the whole world, and including his family. So I don't know who's in my home, but I'm on high alert everywhere I go. I'm double checking behind my back, locking my car, lock your front door and your back door at night. Just be careful. We don't know who's in our country. And that's a painfully scary, but very real thought that I have every single day.
Yeah. Well, it's unfortunate that we have had leaders who put us in this position. And we should hold them accountable for that. And I mean Republicans and Democrats alike who have not taken this seriously. We're not living in Disney World where it's a small world after we're all, and everybody, the cultural differences are more than just costumes and food. There's some real distinctions between people and their attitudes, and we need to be mature enough and adult enough to actually accept that and deal with it for what it is and not live in fantasy land, which a lot of these people have done. Riley Lewis, it's The Real Story with Riley Lewis on OAN, One America News. I hope you'll tune in to Riley's show every day, and I appreciate the chance to talk to you. Thank you,
Riley. Sir.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, producer Dan rejoins us. A new segment we're calling The Best of the Internet, which actually means the worst of the Internet. We'll show you. I don't know whether you're up at 3 a.m. because I can't sleep. Everything driving me crazy and pressures. And I scroll through the internet at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I just cannot believe what I'm seeing. So we'll share some of that stuff with you. And producer Dan probably has some thoughts about what we're seeing here in Iran when we return on the Reid Revolution. Back for the final segment of our program, and producer Dan joins us as he does every day. And how are you doing?
I was about to say, producer Jan, we have news on this show. That's going to that'll be different.
I mean, in the modern era, that's possible, but no, I don't think we've gone that far.
E2 Brute, but yeah, it's well, it's good to have you back in Virginia here. So
yeah, I got to figure out. I got to take these trips. It was a really interesting trip, I will tell you, to be in New York with this it's not a secret meeting, but it's a meeting of really, 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 I was told there were 3 billionaires in the room on Monday night. Like 100 people in the room. I was one of them. And I'm not the billionaire. So if you stacked up the people with, the billionaire status to pauper status, I was probably in the pauper status category. But interesting to hear what these people are thinking. And New York, there's some media types who were in the room, a lot of people who were writers or associated with some of the editorial boards. And I don't ever want to share too much because it's all off the record, so you're not supposed to repeat it. But I thought, it's interesting to be invited and included in this group and be able to share a little bit about that on the air. But man, there was palpable concern in New York. And I think that that's legitimate to be worried.
Well, we were talking about this before the show. Both of us, I guess, maybe talked a little bit about our own weight loss journeys or whatever else. I think I lost 35 pounds last fall. However, I've probably put 10
Is there
or
an
15
ad
back
coming?
on.
Have you cut a deal with the company?
Well, no. Unfortunately, I think I've put 10 or 15 back on. Just the stresses of getting this project off the ground. I've not been very good or diligent about going to the gym lately. But you get to a certain weight. And you say to yourself, gosh, it's just so frustrating to deal with how much maybe to take off. And you think, gosh, I wish I had thought about doing this sooner. I wish I'd taken action before now. And we kind of need to think about Iran in the same way, that we're in the situation we are with Iran because we let this go for so long. And if we suffer any sort of retaliation or whatever at this point, any of the consequences that we face are the result of the fact that we didn't do anything about this until now. And if we wait to do anything until later, the consequences are going to be worse. Just like if we don't get in the gym or if we don't start dieting, if we need to lose weight, it's going to be worse a year or 2 or 3 or whatever from now if we don't do anything right this moment. The principle here is you either pay now or you pay more later.
Yeah.
And if we have to pay anything now for this, it's the result of the negligence that we've exhibited for the last 45 years, not because of what we did this week. This week is why it's not going to be worse later.
It's some people would scoff at that analogy, but I think it's a very good analogy. And there are probably 3 or 4 major things that you could draw that connection to. I would say immigration in the country. No one has wanted to enforce the law because it's ugly. Oh my God, we're going to split up families. And what about the little 5-year-old who is an American citizen, but their parents are here illegally? That's too complicated, and I don't want to be the bad guy. Well, you know what? Now you've made it even worse because that little 5-year-old is now 25 years old and married with a family, and abuela is going to have to go if we're going to enforce the law. And if we don't enforce the law about poor abuela, the grandma, then who do we enforce the law? I mean, we've created chaos where it didn't need to be if someone had just been stoic about it and responsible, not irresponsible. I would use the deficit as another example of that. We're $39 trillion in debt. You want to know why we're $39 trillion in debt? Because no one has the guts to say, we have to cut spending. And we can't pay for everybody's cell phone. We can't pay for everybody's school lunch. We can't pay for everybody's retirement. We can't pay for everybody's medical care. And you know what's weird is I don't think they paid for any of this for me. I mean, I'm not rich, and I am, I try not to be bitter in life because it's easy to get to that place if you hang around the wrong people. But I'm like, I don't think the government ever picked up any tab for me that I'm thinking. Yeah, I mean, I drive on the highways you build at an exorbitant cost, but there is an entire group of people who have been raised to believe that the government has to pick up some of their tab so that they can live a certain lifestyle. The living wage for them is something coupled with government assistance. And I'm getting frustrated that I have been up most of my professional career at 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning to go to work. And I'm looking at all these other people who are sleeping till noon, who are getting, bills paid for. No one has had the guts to stand up in front of the country without vilifying people and just say, tough, you're going to have to pay your own bills now. Why? Because we didn't do that. And now we're $39 trillion in debt, and this cannot continue. And when it collapses, this is what really worries me, Dan.
Yeah.
To your point about not making the tough decisions up front. There are two ways this goes. Either somebody is tough enough to tell the truth and make some tough decisions and assume that the American people will support them, which is a big assumption because I think many of our people do live in fantasy world. 39 trillion, I don't even know what that means. I don't know what that number is. We'll just continue on this track. If we choose that, at some point, it's all coming down on us, like the Soviet Union collapse. And Americans are going to starve to death. Yeah. And the society will forever be changed because we didn't have the guts to do what we needed to do now.
Yeah, I can't claim credit for this analogy. It comes by way of comedian Adam Carolla, whom I really admire. Why didn't he get his own late night show instead of that punk Jimmy Kimmel? Anyway, but he's a car guy, and he said, some cars are Jaguars that you have to take into the shop every week to get maintenance. I had a friend of mine who had a Jaguar, and I can attest that was basically as many times as he was taking the car to the shop. Or you have a Toyota, where Toyotas are so well built, you could go 50,000 miles without an oil change, and the thing would probably keep running. But there's a point at which even the Toyota will break down.
Yeah, good point.
And America is like a Toyota. And it's built to last and to run. But we have been neglecting the maintenance for a long time. And eventually, every quote-unquote car is going to break down if you don't take care of it. And we haven't taken care of it. And
if you look at the dashboard, the dashboard tells the story. $39 trillion in debt. A lot of people on welfare, a lot of people who are here, huge numbers of people who are here who are not citizens, questioning the validity of every election. This is if this were the dashboard on a car, the car is
everything
about
would
to
be
conk
lighting
out.
Yeah,
it's a problem.
All of the lights would be on the dash. Yeah. Check oil, check tires. I mean, everything is flashing like crazy, and we just keep on acting like Leslie Nielsen and the Naked Gun. Nothing to see here. Keep moving. Nothing to see here. But yeah, so it's
one of the things I'd like to do at the end of every show is best of the internet, which is really the worst of the internet.
Some of it's pretty good, though. What we found in the last few days is pretty amusing. But
so you've got a collection of things that the internet has barfed up related to the
attack
bombing of Iran and
the
president and his team. What did you find? You want to show us some
Let's
of
see
that?
here. Why don't we start with this? This is a cover version of Bohemian Rhapsody called Iranian Rhapsody.
With
take a
Trump?
look, folks. Yeah, with President Trump at the piano.
We just bombed Iran, dropped hellfire on their head. Pulled my trigger, now they're dead. MAGA, the perfect strike had just begun.
Yeah. The only thing they could have done better with is the voice for Trump as he's singing. Doesn't really sound like his voice, but
I've never heard him sing, but yeah, I get you.
you imagine it'd be more like MAGA. It'd be a little more
how in the world can they do something that looks that real? I mean, it's not real. I guess. I mean, I think the average person would look at that.
Actually really matters.
But it
that's
looks pretty real.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
All
then,
right, well, that
and
was
then
clever.
This was one that you sent me that I thought was great. The only thing is I wish they had changed the lyrics in this one like they did on the last one. I think it should have been Iran, are you okay? Instead of the original lyrics. But we have dancing Donald Trump, Marco Rubio, and Pete Hegseth in the Oval Office.
This was hilarious. Yeah.
You've been hit by a smooth criminal.
That's clever. That's clever. And think about you would never have been able to pull something like that off in the past. Wow. Isn't that amazing?
I mean, yeah, maybe AI is a double-edged sword.
Marco
I don't want to say
Rubio
that's not.
And Trump all dancing in the Oval Office.
Yeah.
Wow. But obviously fake. AI.
I've saved what I think is the best for last. This is a series that folks do with numerous leaders, but Donald Trump has been one who has been the focal point in part, I suppose, because he is the president right now. But Trump baby needed to address the world after the bombing of Iran, and this is Trump baby talking.
Evening, Iran, or as I like to call it, America's 52nd state. Right behind Canada. Assalamu alaikum, mother truckers. That's right. Your favorite president and new Ayatollah / Supreme Leader learned a new phrase. Very cultured. Many people are saying I pronounced it perfectly. Probably the best pronunciation in history, believe me. Now, I told Kamani, I said, Ali, buddy, knock it off. Stop with the nonsense. Make a deal, Habibi. Very easy, very simple.
Habibi.
And what did he do? He kept running his mouth, kept talking tough. Big mistake. Huge mistake, actually. Because I don't bluff, folks. Everybody knows that. I'm like a casino, except I always win and the house is America. So congratulations, people of Iran. You are now liberated. You didn't even have to do anything. We did it for you. You're welcome.
Wow. See, now that is that's the kind of thing that AI and the internet have now enabled conservatives to do. Because, think about it, 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, the only people who would have had the resources or the ability to pull that off would have been the people at Saturday Night Live or South Park or, one of the entertainment behemoths. And they are all way left of center. So if you felt like you were constantly the butt of the joke, you were. Because they hate you and they want to mock and ridicule you. And if you read any of the books by leftist leaders, ridicule is one of the best ways to humiliate and defeat your opponent. And they have successfully done that for decades to conservatives. So now you've got conservatives who are putting this stuff out. I mean, I don't know. I look at that and think that makes Trump look, it's silly and it's a joke, but it makes him look good compared to what they would do to him. Don't you think?
Yeah,
You're
it's
that stuff.
I think it's more flattering than anything else.
I do too. Yeah.
No, and it's a series of these videos. This is I think they've become kind of a popular trend on social media and whatever else. And then the other thing I think we should mention is I do think that the Reid Revolution now is an official monkey of the show. And I wanted to show the photo of
Punch the Monkey.
That's right. Punch the Monkey.
Oh, this was
with
cute.
John. John made a special trip
to
special layover in Japan to see.
Yeah, some people are doing that. I did not do that. I did not go to Japan. But this is a little AI version of little Punch the Monkey and his stuffed animal with me. Obviously, it's not real. I guess. Do you know that it's not? It's not real. But it was weird when we posted that on the Reid Revolution Facebook page. There were some really nasty, snobby, obnoxious people who thought that was beneath the dignity. What world are you living in, you whack jobs? Supposedly Republicans, whack job Republicans who were attacking me for putting that picture up. Hey, Donald Trump stands in front of the White House and hands out Halloween candy. Glenn Youngkin puts on his little cowboy boots and his little cowboy hat and stands there and does photo ops. This is a news program, but I'm trying not to make it just so completely boring that nobody outside of the General Assembly wants to watch it. So, I mean, what really and truly, what world are you living in where you wouldn't look at that and go, oh, that's a story that everybody in the world, around the world, I bet you go to Africa, to Nairobi, Kenya, and they would recognize that little monkey because it's all over the internet. One of the top stories of the last 14 days. And you're such an obnoxious wench that you think that that is what beneath the dignity of a political candidate. Give me that. You get the hell out of here. I mean, really, what miserable people we have in both political parties if that's the attitude. I thought it was cute. I was
well, as a certain former boss of ours would always remind us, we're in the entertainment business. We're supposed to entertain. So he and I used
to have arguments about that because I said we're in the information business and he said we're in the entertainment business. And truth be told, it's kind of a
little bit of both. Entertainment and enlightenment, as Glenn Beck would have said. Yeah, that's right. I've always liked that phrase of his. You know, the fusion of those two things. You hope you can give people information.
And if you don't offer that, if you just make it dry, policy wonk bull,
right?
You will. I mean, look, if you're trying to sell ads or get eyeballs, you're going to fail because nobody's interested in that. I mean, the masses are not interested in that. Maybe the policy people in D.C. will sit through it, but nobody else will. And you're going to lose the country because the truth is that politics is downstream from culture. So you've got to reclaim the culture if you have any hope of changing the policy and the politics. So I don't know. That was annoying when I saw these nasty comments from these soulless jerks about punch the. Just for you jerks, I'm gonna I'm gonna show a video of Punch the Monkey every day for the rest of the week. At the end of the show, just to stick it to
Punch
you.
Watch.
Because, right? And it's true.
Punch Watch, day 17.
There are people who are crying every day about poor little Punch the Monkey being disowned by the other monkeys. Now, they're pro-abortion. They don't have any problem with babies having their brains sucked out on the day that they're about to be born. That's not a problem for them. But I'm glad that they're not totally dead inside, that they see a little monkey being mistreated, and at least they have some sympathy for the monkey. It would be great
the first
if it
time I saw those
to
videos, I was fighting back tears. I mean, it
was sad.
It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to watch, especially when the other monkeys are basically tormenting the poor little guy. It's just I mean, you hope that people aren't so dead inside that they can't empathize or sympathize.
Some of them are
that sort of a situation. Yeah,
some of them are, and that's evidenced by the policies that you're seeing today. And you know what? Whether you're on the right politically or the left politically, you can't get to that place. I mean, you cannot allow it. And if you do get to that place, then you need to get off the stage, because you can't make public policy based totally on emotion and empathy. Suicidal empathy, as a lot of people have been calling it lately. You'll destroy yourself if you've got a boat that is supposed to have 4 people in it and you've already got 6 people in it, and you put the 7th and 8th person in, you're all going to die. So, it's just a horrible reality that you've got to be able to make tough decisions. But you also can't get so callous towards the basic emotions of humanity that you crush people because of your hatred. And I think everybody needs to check that on the right and the left, because we're in a bad place at the moment. All right.
Should we wrap this one up?
Yeah,
and
I hope
on
people will stick around and watch. Producer Dan, he doesn't even tell me what he's picked. At the end of every show, if you stay for the conclusion,
that's right.
He plays one like 3 or 4 or 5 second little something.
This one's a little longer today, but it's worth it. It's worth the 20 seconds. Yeah, but it's
all right. Well, that's going to do it for us on the Reid Revolution on this Wednesday.
Should we tell people who will be on the show tomorrow?
We can.
Okay.
The former Speaker of the House, Bill Howell, will be
Bill
with
Howell.
us. Yeah, and we will be asking him about the history of
of partisanship in the General Assembly and redistricting. And I think he'll have a very enlightening story to tell you about the Republican attitude versus what we're seeing from the Democrats. So that's tomorrow on the Reid Revolution. Make sure you give us a like and a follow on both of our Facebook pages. There are two of them, and it would really be helpful if we can, get to the 50,000 mark on the second page. So if you could do that, that'd be terrific. You can follow us on YouTube, on X, Rumble, and all of the social media outlets. And please share the clips from these interviews that you find interesting. That's going to do it for us, and we will see you back here bright and early tomorrow morning.
I warned you. I warned you very strongly. I said, make a deal very soon or this is going to happen. And you didn't listen. Very low IQ decision, extremely low IQ. And now you're watching this speech from a bunker somewhere eating cold rice. And I'm sitting here with the most beautiful desk, the most beautiful flag, and the most beautiful Diet Coke in the entire Middle East.